What if everything you are seeing with Hamilton and Ferrari is part of a brilliant plan, and not a disaster? After Baku, many think Hamilton was wrong. But what if I told you that every problem, each failure is calculated to create the perfect machine in 2026? After the Azerbaijan 2025 Grand Prix, the general story in social media and networks was unanimous. Lewis Hamilton had failed. The most laureate pilot in history in his second year without victories, eliminated in Q2, 8th in the race, frustrated by radio and without rhythm in one of the paths where he dominated before. But what not many understood is that this alleged debacle was actually a perfectly calculated play. Because to understand what Ferrari is doing, you must first stop looking at the results table and start looking at the calendar. Ferrari does not compete for the 2025 title, competes for absolute domain in 2026. Baku was the perfect scene to expose the worst of the SF25, but also to surgically identify the exact limits of that car. It is a fast urban circuit, with long straight lines that punish mechanical grip, and slow curves that demand traction and braking stability. Two areas where Ferrari 2025 shows its greatest deficiencies. And this is where the true value of what happened enters. While the press titled Hamilton Failure, in Maranello they titled Complete Real Data Report in Extreme Conditions. What many interpret as a bad weekend was actually an extended session of data collection. Baku's lines cooled the SF25 tires critically, taking them out of the optimal thermal window. Without grip, without traction, without trust. In classification, this was lethal. But in the race, it was even more valuable. Because it allowed us to understand how the car responds in low grip conditions, how the rear train aerodynamics behaves when the asphalt does not accompany, and above all, how the car reacts to the input of a pilot who is taking every return to the limit of technical understanding, not of pure performance. During the race, radio communications between Hamilton and his engineer revealed tension, frustration, and doubts. But they also showed something more important: direct communication without filters between pilot and technical equipment. Hamilton was not complaining, he was diagnosing. Each comment was a camouflaged instruction. Each criticism of the car's behavior, a starting point for engineers who already work in next year's car, Project 678. In addition, Fred Vasseur himself, team director, was overwhelming after the race. He publicly admitted that they underestimated the adaptation process. Is that a mistake? Apparently yes, but deep down it is an intelligent maneuver. Because saying it aloud, Ferrari also released pressure from the media environment and sent a clear message to his rivals. We are willing to bleed in 2025 if that means dominating in 2026. Hamilton, meanwhile, has begun to experiment with different management styles, something he never did in Mercedes, where he was the one who marked the way. In Baku, he adapted his Leclerc-style braking to look for a minimal speed and higher curve. The result was a classification session where, despite being out in Q2, he rolled in key sectors at the same pace as his partner. And in the race, although trapped in traffic and limited by the configuration of the car, it maintained an impeccable constancy, prioritizing the collection of data on the aggression on the track. And this regulation changes everything. From 2026, Formula One will adopt lighter cars with new aerodynamic proportions, drastic reduction of load, and a complete redesign of the hybrid propulsion system. It is not a simple evolution, it is a revolution. In that context, Ferrari has understood that the only way to get prepared is to start before all. And Hamilton, who has lived similar processes in McLaren and Mercedes, is the perfect advisor for that transition. But there is something even deeper behind this strategy. With Project 678, Ferrari not only wants to make a winning car, he wants to make the best car ever produced in Maranello under a hybrid regulation. And for this, the old Italian design dogmas that prioritized aesthetics or tradition are progressively abandoning to adopt an extreme efficiency philosophy, structural modularity, and tactical freedom. Even the bad days of the SF25 are valuable for this plan. Because they are allowing to map behavior patterns in extreme conditions that would not normally be studied in simulator. Baku was an example. The drop in performance in long lines exposed defects in the thermal flow of the rear tire that will now be redesigned from the chassis. Melbourne showed the lack of grip on a wet floor. China showed how the car reacts to unexpected re-asphalted and hard compounds. Each of those scenarios are direct inputs at 678. And let's not forget this. Ferrari has made public that, since before Baku, they already have isolated work cells in the wind tunnel, working on the first aerodynamic versions of the new car. This means that while the rivals still try to save their 2025, Ferrari already designs the 2026 front wing based on the mistakes they make today. Does SF25 have no traction? Then the 678 will be born with a completely different rear suspension philosophy. Is the current car sensitive to temperature changes? Then the new car will have a predictive thermal map integrated into its control system. Is the car inconsistent from Friday to Sunday? Then the design priority will be to make a car adaptable to multiple configurations without compromising the aerodynamic base. This is what makes this moment of weakness a master play. Because Ferrari is not fighting for points. It is building culture. You are programming knowledge. It is sowing the seeds of an era that can return the crown that have been chasing almost 2 decades. From outside, see a heptacampion of the world frustrated by an unstable car, classifying outside the top 5 and fighting in the midfield may seem like a sports tragedy. But when we look more closely, what is happening with Lewis Hamilton and Ferrari in 2025 not only makes sense, it is absolutely brilliant. Because this is not a simple calculation error, nor a poorly executed transition. This is a long-term power construction lesson. And that, in Formula One, is something that is rarely allowed. Hamilton's talent has never been in doubt. What is at stake is not its speed, but its ability to influence an entire team. In Mercedes it was the face of the domain, but it was also the figure that shaped a team that, before his arrival, had no winning identity. And in Ferrari he is trying something even more ambitious. To change the culture of an institution that, for decades, has been divided between uncontrolled passion and rigid structures. But here comes the most interesting. While the world talks about Ferrari's mistakes, while the media focus on what does not work, a silent revolution is being fought within Maranello. The defeats are no longer lived as tragedies. They are processed as an investment. Because every bad output, each disastrous stint, each strategy error, is being registered, analyzed and transformed into knowledge applicable to 678. It is counterintuitive but strategic. Ferrari is not optimizing the present. It is sowing for the future. And Hamilton is the bridge between those two times. In addition, there is one more dimension that makes this so powerful: the psychology of visible failure. Ferrari is being allowed to be vulnerable. He is assuming their limitations, recognizing them in public, and using that narrative to divert the pressure towards the equipment that is obliged to win now. McLaren, Red Bull, Mercedes. It is a media control master movement. Because while these teams spend resources solving problems of the present, Ferrari is designing a structural advantage for a regulation that has not yet arrived. And let's not forget what this means for young people within the team. New engineers, training strategists, mechanics who see Hamilton work side by side with the technical department. They are witnessing how a champion is built from scratch. They are seeing the raw process without ornaments. And that is not learned in simulator or in wind tunnel. That is lived. That is why this is great. Because it goes beyond sports. It is a total reconstruction from the basis. And when we look at 2026, we will not see Ferrari as a team that reacted late. We will see it as the only one who decided to invest in time. With the Azerbaijan Grand Prix already in the rearview mirror, Ferrari faces one of the most decisive phases of the entire 2025 season. The environment has spoken, the analyses have reigned, the criticisms have been frontal. But within the team, the roadmap remains unchanged. And the big question that emerges now is, and now what? For many teams, the next logical step would be to look for immediate adjustments. Press to arrive updates. React to external pressure. But Ferrari is not competing in that short-term race. It is operating under a completely different logic, in which each movement, even those that seem errors, respond to a 2-year scale planning. The real focus is already in the second half of the season, not to fight for the current championship, but to accelerate the implementation of the knowledge collected during this first phase. Loic Serra and his team are already transferring information on SF25 to the structural design of the 678 project. The lessons collected in Baku on tire degradation, in Australia about the interaction of the car with wet surfaces, and in China on aerodynamic response to extreme re-asphalted response, are not notes for the technical archive. They are part of the conceptual skeleton of the 2026 car. But here there is something deeper. Ferrari is building not only a better car, but a new way of managing its development. They are breaking the old cycle of depending on the punctual talent of their pilots or a good aerodynamic decision. They are looking for technical and strategic consistency. And that means that in the next races, we could continue to see an irregular Ferrari on the track, but absolutely effective in the analysis and design rooms. What follows, therefore, is not a direct battle against rivals, but against the clock. Because Ferrari knows that the only way to enter the new regulation with advantage is to close this year with a consolidated concept, a synchronized team and a robust technical base. They know it in the technical direction. Vasseur knows. And above all, Hamilton knows. Because what follows is not one more season. It is Ferrari's most important season in more than a decade. And although the world is looking another part, within Maranello the dice have already been launched. The question is not whether Ferrari will win in 2025. The question is yes, looking back in 2026, we will understand that all this was part of the only possible way to return to the top.